Welcome to episode 114 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I'm joined each week by...
Hi, Doug Griffith here, Extreme Brewing Supplies, and cheers to all of you who are listening to the program. Weather report for today is very sunny, nice, abnormally warm temperatures approaching, I think, 80 degrees today. But this weekend's supposed to be wonderful, both Saturday and Sunday, so you should all get out. And Saturday is American Homebrew Association Learn to Brew Day. We're having a session here on Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Sean's teaching a beginner brewing class. So whether you come here or get your neighbors, show them how to brew today. On Saturday.
And we're actually going to talk about that a lot on the show. First of all, I want to talk about what we're drinking. If you care to, you can look at the Shook Craft Beer Facebook page, where Doug is going to take us through a tasting every week of one of the beers that they brew here. And this week it's the Stormy Morning Breakfast Porter.
Yeah, this was created last October for the Shorecraft Beer event that we had this past weekend. But a year ago, we created this and another one, which ended up being called Beats Me. It was both of them were brewed at Assawaman Brewery, I think in September last year, for serving at the Shorecraft Beer event.
Right, and then it was really just before. It was the day I got home from vacation and started my new job, so it must have been like September 19th. It was really my first or second day on the job that I.
We had just enough to get it brewed and get it kegged and served. This beer is actually one of our kits, and you can get it here at extremebrewing.com or online. The Beats Me, we didn't continue because it involved beets. But we have that recipe, so if anybody wants to do that recipe and liked it at the event last year, we can still come up with a recipe for you. You just have to provide the beets.
Yeah, and that was a really tasty beer.
It was a red ale.
And it was a nice red color from the beets.
Exactly. And this is nice. It's got a little molasses taste to it. It's got some oats in it. It's a little bit of smoked grains, so it all blends well together.
Yeah, and I'm quite enjoying it. Speaking of the Shorecraft Beer Festival, we had the festival this weekend. Thank you guys who came out, and if you didn't come out, we are sorry we missed you. We had almost 800 people there, more than 800, I think. We had 750 glasses, and all the glasses were gone. And then we gave out other glasses, which is, so if you saw people walking around with solo cups and things like that, most of them were people like me, like volunteers and things like that. But it was a really, really successful event. And I think everybody got along. I think everybody got what they wanted and cleared out nice.
Interesting note.
Yeah.
We had a cider on tap, and we had a sparkling wine, one of our Island Miss kits, a blueberry Pinot Noir. Those were the first two things to go for us.
Yeah.
So it was for all the non-beer people that we provide some of these things to taste also.
Right, and I guess it worked out. It worked out pretty well. And people also, I was actually thinking about that. You were also like the first stop.
Well, we were.
And people were like, "I need a beer." A couple things.
But we still had beer left on the.
Oh, really? You
did the CPA and the. Turkey roll.
Turkey? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was. Golly, I don't remember, but I had it.
Yeah, just only a few days ago. But anyway, but the wine and the cider went.
They really went.
We had 2 beers left.
And Dogfish Head was the other one who had a cider, and that one kicked pretty quickly as well. That was. Did you get a chance to try that one?
No, I did not get down to. Got to hardly any of the other booths.
I don't recall the name of it, but Dogfish has a new cider out, and it's made with like 5 different apples and Brettanomyces, I think, to sour it. And it was really good, but it was really complex for a cider. It was like, you have to. We're going to talk about this later on, but you have to sometimes drink more than just a sip to get a sense of the beer. Yeah, I like. We're supposed to do 4-ounce pours, and I think everybody was generous with the 4-ounce pours, which is the way it should be, because you want to get a sense of the beer when you're tasting it. Yeah. You don't want to just have a sip and not know anything at all about the beer. But before we get into that,
let me say,
please.
The notable thing about ours is what we served can be made at home by you if you want to be a home brewer or are a home brewer. If you're not a home brewer, for beer, we've got a class coming this Saturday, 2 o'clock. It's a National Learn to Brew Day. So we're having class, and we'd like to have either, if you're not a brewer or you know somebody who wants to brew, by all means, send them our way. We're taking reservations. Just call the store or send us an email online so we can know how many people are coming. So.
Yeah. There was a story in this week called "Why You Should Homebrew," and that's the story that we're kind of opening up with this week. And one of the things that I got a kick out of was, first of all, it was really, the guy was just showing off that he had a beer that he liked that he could only make himself, and I think that that's a big part of it. But the other big part of it is it's not just to get out of having to go to a brewery. There's something, touching and making your own beer is satisfying.
To me, it's a sense of accomplishment. You made something that's just as good as what you can buy.
Yeah.
Maybe even better, more attuned. Once you become knowledgeable how the ingredients go together and what you can change to change that taste, you can attune it to your own taste so you have something that's really very enjoyable.
A perfect beer just for you. It's just like when you cook your own meal. You can go to fantastic restaurants and they'll do a fantastic job for anybody. But when you're making a meal for yourself, you're gonna get just as much,
a little bit more of that, a
little bit
less of that, and it's just right.
Just the way that you like it, and that's I think an important part of homebrewing. And the other aspect is you get to share it with people, and that's why I like to hang around homebrewers, because they've always got more beer than they can drink, and they're always willing to share it, and they're always happy to talk about, like, what did they do and how did they make things go. And there's a certain pride. I like to come here, for instance, when you guys when all the homebrewers get together and they all bring beer and they all just talk about how they've made what they made, and it's a culture, but not a cult. It's just people who like to do things, hanging out and doing it, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon. And I didn't realize that November 5th was this coming Saturday anyway, was the National Learn to Brew Day. We may be live here. We'll see how my afternoon shakes out. I already we have new gear. I don't know if you're not listening.
A new microphone.
Yeah, we have new microphones that kind of hook on, and they're super long. So the last time I tried to make a video, I couldn't do it with Sean because the microphone wasn't long enough, and it was attached to the camera, and it was ill suited to the purpose. But I think this time we probably can do a Facebook Live, not a Facebook Live, a Google Hangout, and just be the whole time hang out and make the beer. And if you'd like to tune in, if you can't come and you'd like to tune in, we'll show you how to do that. So that was our first homebrew story. The second homebrew story, this is a new section called "Is It Worth the Effort?" Because I keep finding these homebrew things online now. I have a new source for homebrew stories, and there are all these do it yourself. So last week we talked about whether or not it was worth making your own hops dryer, right? And this week we're going to talk about whether or not it's worth making your own spider.
Yep, hop spider.
Hop spider. So what's a hop spider?
Well, hop spider is just a way to add your hops to your boil, but not let your hops actually into the boil or disperse through the boil. So it's a device, and you can make them yourself. Just a piece of plastic pipe or a pipe fitting with 3 bolts. You mount it so that it looks like a spider. It's got 3 different bolts hanging out the side, and then bolts are generally about 8 to 10 inches long, so that it sits on top of your brew kettle. And then you put some kind of a sock inside of it. It can be one of the paint. I think the one in the article that I saw was a paint strainer, but we've got nylon strainers, or you can use a throwaway muslin bag. But anyway, it allows you to add the hops to the device that's suspended above your boil kettle, and the bag is down actually in the boil. So you can add your hops to that bag, and they boil in the bag, but yet you can pull the bag out very easily. And the reason you want to have the spider so that the bag doesn't end up on the bottom of the kettle and burn a hole in and cause off flavors for the beer. So,
all the bad things.
So you suspend it from the top and know that it's not going to hit the bottom of the bag or the boil kettle.
Now, two quick things in this, because I know that you guys also do a similar thing with the grains, right?
Yeah, we'd use a bag, similar bag for the grains and suspend it off the handle, but we don't do that into the boil. We usually pull that out about 170 degrees so that you're not pulling out any of the tannins out of the grains. We also have one we sell. It's not a hop spider, but it hangs on the side of the kettle. It's a spider, but it's a circular screen about 12 inches tall, about 5 inches in
I've seen
diameter.
it, and it hooks on instead of hangs in the middle.
Right, hooks on the side of the kettle.
And there's no real
Does
difference.
the same thing. It's a
them.
reusable thing. It's a stainless steel.
When we did the Grainfather demonstration, they had he had one for his hops.
Right.
That was
right.
I don't know. He said it was very many or very few microns.
Yeah.
I forget which.
It's pretty tight. It's pretty tight weave on the device.
Right. So anyway, so that's the homebrewer gear section. And now, last but not least, I found another really kind of funky recipe that I wanted to check in with you on. The foraged ingredients recipe. Did you get a chance to look at that?
No, I did not see it.
Okay, so this.
Yes, I did see that.
He used oak leaves and stuff like
right.
that.
Things that are available this time of year. And the biggest thing I saw with oak leaves, make sure they're dry so they're not moldy.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess if you put them in during the boil, there's no chance of them infecting your beer. Is that the idea?
No, but you want them fairly. Main thing I think he was pointing out with the make sure they're dry and not moldy is that you don't want any off flavors to come from a.
You don't want mold flavored beer.
Yeah,
it's
right.
not the
so
Harry
you want
Potter
something
beans
that has fallen off the tree and dried well, and you don't see any more mold spores or anything on it. Or you can take it off the tree where it's green and just put it somewhere so it dries, and then you know it's not going to be out in the ground somewhere and have mold on it.
Now, is there something have you ever done anything like that? Just grab something kooky to throw in the beer to see what would happen?
I've tried some odds and ends, things that you may not think of. I can't really think of a thing right now, but I know that our friend Jay Talkington, who is opening up the meadery, he's done oak leaf mead before.
Oh, has
he? I've had it before. So, and he does some very odd things with that you wouldn't think of for things going into a mead.
And what's the oak? How does the oak? Like, does it have the same effect as an oak barrel, or is it
not as much? But you can taste there's something different.
Yeah,
there. And I think it adds color to the mead.
Yeah, I guess it. I guess it would. I guess it would add color. So,
but a lot of these flavors you want to add, sometimes you don't want them to be predominant. If you have 2 or 3 flavors, they just meld good together to give you something that you can't put your finger on sometimes, but those flavors are there and end up being a good flavored beverage.
It makes a difference, but you don't necessarily know why.
Yeah.
Right. When I had first started in the newspaper business for real, whenever the editor had a chance, especially since I was just starting, whenever the editor had a chance to go over my story first, it was always substantially better. And he didn't change any of the words, or sometimes he would just shorten a sentence or put a comma where a period should be, or vice versa, just these little touches. And you're like,
it just makes it more sense.
So much
more reading.
Yeah, it was just so much better, but not substantially different.
Yeah.
And so that seems like you can't put your finger on why this is better, but it's clearly better. So yeah, if you guys I know that we have some of you guys who are homebrewers who listen to us. So if you have any kooky things that you've done, please reach out to us and let us know. You can do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes these days it always seems like bigger, better, more is best, but that's not always the case. Sometimes the subtleties keep you guessing as to what it is rather than have it in your face. Case in point with a lot of the IPAs, they're very, very hoppy and they're very notable to what that hop is or what they're trying to achieve. But sometimes the more subtle things, keep you guessing a little bit more.
Yeah, I was actually on the radio doing a promotion for the Sure Craft Beer Festival, and they asked me what beer I like the best, and I was talking, as I've talked about a million times on here, how I'm just coming back around to, you know what, can you just give me a porter? Give me a porter flavored porter. You know, let me tease out some of the flavors instead of punching me in the face with stuff all the time.
Yeah, we had a lot of people that kept saying, I don't want anything hoppy. I don't want anything hoppy. You know,
yeah.
So.
And well, the Sure Craft Beer place probably wasn't. I mean, so Evo had the Delmarva Pure Pills, and Third Wave had their Sandstorm, which was gone like immediately. And
which were the non-hoppy
yeah,
stuff.
Which were the non-hoppy stuff. And I don't know. Oh, did you get a chance to go down to Rubber Soul?
No, I did not.
They had a really good Oktoberfest. A really just, again, solid beer, and that's what you like to. That's what I like to see because so when you have microphones, you can't pound yourself in the chest. I apologize for that, folks. That's what I like to see. Opportunities for new beer drinkers to come on board, and when there's a lot of these punch you in the face beers, it makes people, as you said, it makes I just want some cider.
So
you know,
you're talking to transitional drinkers.
Absolutely,
going from the big guys to the craft brewers.
Right. And actually, that's kind of to our next point. This week, it's weird because I'm loud and because I'm all over the place. Whenever something happens in beer, like people are like, hey, what do you think about this? And I like to say it doesn't matter what I think about it because I'm not like an official expert. But recently, reality guy Anthony Bourdain was saying what people took to be, unflattering things about craft beer. And like several people emailed me or sent me the story or tagged me on the story on social media and like, what do you think of this? And I don't think much of it, frankly. Yeah. I don't know if you got a chance to see the story or anything.
But whether you're, it's one of those things. Their craft beers are growing, and there must be a reason why they're growing.
Yeah.
People like them, like the diversity, the difference, the enhanced flavors.
Absolutely. One of the things where I felt like he was at least partially right, or I felt he had a point, and it's only because it matches my point. So it's easy to agree with someone who agrees with you back, is I'm not a huge fan of flights. I've been falling out of love with flights for a long time. I'll take my chances.
But that's a transitional drinker.
That's exactly what I said.
People who are getting into the craft drinking.
You want to have a flight.
Yeah, you don't know what the different beers are.
Right.
Generally, you know enough. I know enough. If I go up and I see 6 beers, I generally know.
Pick one. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take a pint of that.
And because as you get into drinking beer more, you're more likely to get
the styles,
and you'll get more out of drinking a pint than you will out of drinking a flight, which has been my argument for it's very rare that I have a flight.
And a lot of times they're actually cheaper.
Oh yeah,
they charge premium price for those flights,
right? Because people come in and they want to.
It takes more time to do that 6 or 7 beer flight, 7 glass flight.
But the other thing that I wanted to point out about the story, where I think he was wrong, is and it kind of revealed it, is he talked about how it doesn't matter what beer it is because it doesn't show up, the flavor of the beer doesn't show up on television. Which is the flavor of the chicken doesn't show up on television, but it doesn't keep them from putting chicken on it, from saying that it's, I don't know, a free range,
Unfortunately, I don't have anything left, but it was a dark beer.
It was a dark beer, and that's what. And he was talking about, again, he switched right into the anti-wine snob rhetoric, which was, most people can't tell and things like that. And I don't disagree, but there's a difference between being tired of being tired of a snobbery and discounting a culture. And I think that's what he missed out on, is that we have all of these, like as I said at the end of the story, like the reason they asked the question is because craft beer matters now. If you're gonna call yourself a foodie, just saying, well, it doesn't show up nice on TV, so I don't care what I drink, that isn't gonna cut it. The other thing I pointed out in the story is I said, at his restaurant he would never have a Bud Light cheese dip. He would never use Bud Light as an ingredient for a cheese dip, although it would make not an awful ingredient for eggs. But we've talked about that before. So that's But
I think that leads into your next story with the soups and the different pairings of craft beers with different soups, which are pretty good.
Yes, that was fantastic. Did you want to talk about that, Ed?
Sure. I mean, The pairings that the story came up with seem very appropriate. Depends upon whether you've got a light soup or a heavy soup. You pair it with something appropriate with that beer, whether it's light or dark or hoppy or not hoppy. You got to pair things right so that the beers are not overpowering the taste of the soups.
And that's I love the complementary aspect, and probably that's why I've been more interested in the less aggressive beers, because I like them to complement my my dinner. I like to enjoy beer with dinner.
Yeah.
And this is that's a great way to do it. The other thing about the soups though is it's like the warm. It's
a time of year.
It's 80 degrees today,
Yeah.
but eventually it'll get cold, and we can have soup. And actually, I had interesting. I had a cream. I had a potato broccoli soup with Exile Pale Ale Exile ESB last night.
Okay.
From Evo.
And you could also put some of that beer in the soup if you wanted. There's many good soups that have beer ingredients.
Yeah, beers. Well, I mean, Guinness Stew is one, like a kind of a famous one. And I really like Guinness Stew. I like the bitter aspect of it. But the reason that I had an Exile, it's called Exile Red now, in my refrigerator was because it was left over from the festival. I wasn't. My wife was going to be late picking me up, so I was on my own for about 3 hours after the festival. So I rode uptown in Ocean City, and I had trouble finding a place to eat. So I got a 6-pack of beer instead. And then I realized that having been drinking all day,
beer is food too.
Absolutely. And I'm like, I really got to get some food in me. So I ended up stopping at Burger King, where I've never. I think that's the second time I've been at a Burger King this century. And I had the fish sandwich with the Exile ESB. And so my official pick for if you must eat at Burger King, and I brought my beer in there, and they didn't give me a hard time about it, which was very cool of them. Which is the other reason I want to give them a shout out, because they could have given me a hard time, but I cracked my Evo beer and I put it in the brown paper bag that my sandwich came in, and I sat there and I drank it, and they were cool with it, and it washed away the flavor of that sandwich, such as it was. Yeah. Very, very well. And
beer
then
was incognito.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I went across the street and I was able to enjoy it with a cigar. I picked it out with that whole taste in mind. And
you got around.
Oh yeah, it was a good night. My wife picked me up about 8. It was a 16-hour day for me, but it was the right 16 hours. So
I know I got there at 10 o'clock and you were already there.
Yeah, I
moving stuff around.
I was it's a busy time, but it's always a fun time when you're involved in these craft beer festivals. I lost my place. Oh, did you have a chance to get a look at the line cleaner story?
Yes, I did. Yeah, that's. I think that's. I mean, there are states that have regulations, and I was surprised that some places actually require or request you to do it twice a week. But I think line cleaning is a necessary thing that has to be done in bars to clean out the line, especially if you're going to change taps.
Right.
And probably, especially for a beer that has been soured beer.
Yeah, if you serve a sour beer, you probably should make that your sour beer tap, or make sure you clean it.
Yeah, or some of these things are live culture still.
Right.
I mean, you got yeast. Most drafts, I think, still have live yeast in them, although they're clear, but the yeast is still active in there, or still there, but maybe not active, but dormant.
Right.
Probably on the sours coming in kegs, there are live cultures in there. So periodically they should be clean. And what I mean by live cultures, the things are going to attach themselves to that line, hose in that line, and grow something.
Right.
Probably nothing bad, but it may influence when you change a tap, it may influence that next beer coming on.
Yeah, and especially in the smaller bars and the divier bars, it's more prevalent. Like there are places where like you'll go in where I was just you know what it was? I went to this awful liquor store, and they still had the Sprung from Evo was still on the shelf.
That's from the spring.
And yeah. And so when you see something like that, when you see a seasonal beer on tap out of season, it's probably not going to taste real great out of it. And I recall actually when I was visiting in my hometown, the only thing they had on tap was Boston Lager that I was interested in, and apparently they don't sell much of it because, I mean, if I can detect an off flavor in a beer, it's pretty good. But the guy in the story said he can smell the dirty lines when he comes in. That seems more like a superpower to me. I don't know if I could do that.
That may be. I mean, probably the worst place is the actual beer tap itself, where you pour the beer, because where it dries out now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but we put covers on. And that's mainly because of all the gnats we have. It's this time of year, gnats are horrible. I hate them getting up in the taps, and that'll
change the flavor.
Well, they'll get up there and they'll just nest, and you don't know what's going to be up in there. But it's nothing worse than pouring a beer and having a couple of gnats come out in that beer. So we have covers for our beers to try to eliminate those gnats from getting into that tap. But those taps are open to the air, and a lot of stuff grows because it needs air in order to grow. Probably one of the worst places is at the end of that tap.
Yeah, so you always want the second beer of the day instead of the first. Get rid
of those gnats first. That's this time of year, and anything else that's been growing in there.
Right. One of the other things we wanted to talk about real quick is is we're starting to import beer, import craft beer, which I got a huge kick out of. So I put up a couple stories, one about Indian beer and one about a Mexican beer. That's how wide open the market is. Is that, while people are worried about is the market saturated, it's apparently not saturated enough because we're importing
craft beer. Yeah, with all the 4,000 breweries in the country, and more coming.
And one of the things that I think it shows, especially Mexico and India are developing countries. They're not developing like Ethiopia developing, but they're still growing economies, and craft beer is just awesome for the middle class. It's like if you're a working guy and you're willing to do the work, you can make your own beer and you can sell your own beer. And if you can,
but it's great for the economy.
Yeah,
I mean, not only do you have the brewer, but you got the guy supplying the brewery. So it's somewhat of a trickle down.
Yeah, and
you got glass, you got kegs, you got all this other stuff that the breweries need. So somebody has to be providing that from that country.
Right, and when it's a local place, most of the money is going to stay in, in the community. As I was saying to our biker friends during the beer festival in Seaford, is Budweiser money goes into the pockets of Belgian bankers. I don't know if that's true. I just like to say it.
Well, some of the profits end up there.
Yeah, no. I mean, yes, I'm sure they have plenty of jobs in.
There was a reason why they bought the company.
Yeah, they but still, if you want to keep the money local, you want to buy local beer, and that was the other point that I made was about trying to drink within 100 miles of where you're having the beer, and so there was so people like me who do like the bigly local thing, we're big targets and we're easy targets. And my brother likes to send me, cartoons about, local cartoons, right?
Yeah.
So there was he sent me a cartoon of some witches, and I think that they were wondering whether the Eye of Newt, or that's what it says. I only use local children, and then he put on top of it children from within 100 miles of where they're brewing it. So I got a kick out of it.
It really is good for the local economy, though.
Right, and I mean, and it's where it's where my livelihood is always going to be about writing about about what's going on here. So I may as well, the stronger the local economy is, the better it is for me. I mean, I have skin in the game.
It benefits a lot of people, including breweries who have more choices to be able to, if they don't like something with one brewery or want more experience or like the philosophies of another brewery, they can move on to another place.
Absolutely, people have lots of opportunities. The employees as well as the beer drinkers.
And for craft beer, that gives you different potential for different beers at the same brewery even.
Well, that was one of the cool things about the festival is there were a lot of different beers. It wasn't all IPAs. A lot of the brewers did special firkins for the event. But they also didn't all just bring, you know, their best IPA. There was a nice mix of beer. I think part of that has to do with it being in the fall. I think if you do a summer event, you're going to see a lot of IPAs because people are going to want IPAs. But the fall event, I think, gave people the opportunity to stretch out a little bit. Dogfish Head brought their Indian Brown, which I love every time I have it.
That's very appropriate this time of year.
Yeah, it's just, and again, that goes back to my just give me a beer flavored beer, and it's nice. It's, you know, it's got.
And Saturday was great. I mean, it was a little crisp. Wind was picking up a little bit more than what I would have liked, but it wasn't bad off. You know, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too cold.
Right.
It definitely wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold.
Right. Right. So, and last but not least, if you want to check, we do also a recipe of the week. I've been able to do it for 3 weeks in a row, so we're going to call this a segment. The recipe of the week this week: if you're sick of pumpkin beer, put it in your pie. So there's a pumpkin beer cheesecake recipe.
That did sound good.
It does sound really good. So I may give that a shot. As always, if you're interested, if there's something you want to hear, if there's something you'd like us to look into, anything, just please reach out to us. You can get us through extremebrewing.com with an E or an X, with or without the E. It's extremebrewing.com. Yay. Yeah, there you go. And you can get me at my name backwards on social media. That is OSSURYNOT. You can find me also through shorecraftbeer.com and the beerwithstrangers.com website. That's, I think, all. Last but not least, if you made it this far and you forgot what we said half an hour ago, come to the Learn to Brew Day or participate in Learn to Brew Day. And if you are participating in Learn to Brew Day, please tag us. Just tag the shorecraftbeer.com website or the Facebook page, and we'll make sure we share that so we can see if anybody's if someone's participating, we can share the love.
Yeah, we'd like to know how many people actually did show somebody how to brew day.
Right.
How many people we showed how to brew on that day.
Right. And so Saturday is as good a day as any. So that's all we got for this week. So until next week,
drink what you like and be happy.
All right. We'll see you, folks.